All right. Hello, everybody. We're back again. I'm here with Lily, aka PharaohHazard. So, today we're just going to go into it. We're going to dive into Tenet, the newest Christopher Nolan film. And Christopher Nolan, I'd say if we had to kind of think of who's one of the biggest directors of the 21st century and the 2010s, certainly Christopher Nolan is probably number one or number two. He started the decade with Inception, which was huge. I mean, huge movie. He made The Dark Knight Rises. We did a review of Interstellar. So he's been making a lot of big films. This film was very, very highly anticipated. And unfortunately, it got kind of caught up in the coronavirus pandemic. But this is a very kind of interesting film. So I guess just to start off, what are your overall feelings about Nolan? Just kind of in general, I guess.
Think he's sometimes. Oh, I'll start with a compliment. That's better. I think he is a very good director. I think he's a very smart director, but I think sometimes he's a little too smart for his own good, and that comes across in his films sometimes. But I think he knows the audience that he's making movies for, and I can't really fault him for that. I don't think his movies are for everyone, but he's made some movies for everyone, like his Batman movies. Yeah. I think anybody could probably watch those and enjoy them. You don't have to be like an auteur or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I think he's really good. I think his body of work really speaks for itself. But I think sometimes his movies can come across as a little arrogant, but I think he's just a really smart guy and knows what he wants to make. And as someone who can be a little a little perfectionist about stuff that they make sometimes, I kind of get it. So yeah, I think he's a good director, regardless of any negative things or criticisms I might have about him. I think he's good.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing that's most interesting to me is there's a couple things that I don't know why it kind of took me. I definitely got the time element. There's always a time element in his films, I'd say.
He's very obsessed with time.
He's very obsessed with time, yeah. This film kind of maybe, I don't know why, but I kind of realized that he this is kind of a small thing. It's more of an aesthetic choice, probably because of how he wants people to consume the film, but you never actually really see anyone die in his films. People get shot and you never see a drop of blood. They just die.
Yeah, his movies aren't overtly violent. He's not a Tarantino who, while I think Tarantino uses violence to move a plot forward, Nolan doesn't really show blood all that much. I mean, I think maybe when it calls for it, but it's really...
Yeah, to be honest, even then, I think that you don't see it. Because I remember watching this, and there's a bunch of scenes where people get shot, stuff like that, and then I don't know why it just kind of dawned on me. It was wait, that guy just got shot, and we just didn't see anything.
Yeah, or the torture scene in the beginning of the movie after they've gotten away from the opera house. He alludes to violence instead of actually showing it. We see the aftermath and the pain that our characters are going through, but the train goes by as the Russian mobster guy is taking a knife to his mouth, which is I think we can kind of just imagine what it probably is because we've seen enough violence in movies. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's actually a really good point. He doesn't really show a lot of violence. He kind of just alludes to it.
And this kind of reminded me. So the beginning of Dunkirk, you see some people get shot and you don't see any blood. It's not like Saving Private Ryan. It's just people died, because I feel like and what I kind of realized watching this film is I think when you do that, it means that the plot is more important than any just showing violence or something. Mm-hmm. It's just more about what's going to happen than seeing, oh my God, this guy died and he died really violently or something. Because there's violent stuff in these movies. Like you said, this torture scene, super violent. Right, it's digging this dude's mouth out. That's really bad. We don't see any of it. We see none of it. We see none of it. We don't really. We see a little bit of blood in that scene, but That's it. Which I thought that was interesting. So, I guess we can jump into it. Talk about the plot of this film. So this film opens up. It's pretty cool. So I'm pretty sure they're in like Ukraine. It's like the Ukrainian National Opera House, and some guys in like a truck, and they're waiting for something to happen. And then we see this, basically the opera is about to start, and then some terrorists come in and they're shooting and they're attacking people, and they are stomping on cellos, all the worst things you could possibly imagine.
I know, that was actually more heartbreaking when they stepped on that cello. I'm like, what the hell? Like, that's probably like a $2,000 and probably more like instrument. You're a dick.
I know.
Also, I love the cello. So,
like, my girlfriend wants to buy a violin. A good violin is thousands. Like you said, it is thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah. There's what's it called? The most famous, I think, violin maker, I think, is Stradivarius. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Like, I watched a mini documentary about Stradivarius, and it was like the wood is aged perfectly for sound, and it's a lot of money. Yeah, and you kind of like, my girlfriend she bought like a $100 violin off of Amazon, and as you could guess, it sounded like trash. I mean, you pay for quality, man, and it sucks. It sucks, but like,
yeah, you gotta pay like $5,000 for a good cello or violin or something.
Was that just like a regular wooden one, or is it an electric? Because they make electric violins too.
Well, so the thing about that one, it was I don't know what it was made of, but it was made of some bad material. You know what I'm saying? It was made of like one of those faux wood.
It wasn't even wood. It's not even.
Yeah, it's like the wood that's like fake wood, you know,
like that you see in like old motels that line the walls.
And it feels really like plasticky and kind of like rubbery. That's what it was. It felt really rubbery.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Like, we returned it like immediately, but there you go. Okay, so this terrorist attack happens, and then the people in the van, they're like, "Oh, wait, the Americans," and then they give them these fake special forces badges, and then so they go in with the team of special forces, I guess Ukrainian special forces guys. We're going in to take out they're like SWAT, kind of like a SWAT team. They're going in to take out the terrorists, but they have like John David Washington and this other guy. They have their own mission. You know, they're infiltrating to do something else. So they go into the building, and the special forces, they like put everyone in the opera house to sleep with some like sleeping gas. And while the special forces people do the siege, John David Washington goes to get, I guess, his target or whatever, this guy that he's trying to save. And they have this exchange where, John David Washington saves him. And he's like, "Oh, we live in a twilight world, and there are no friends at dusk." And so he's like, "You've been
compromised."
Yeah, you've been compromised. You got to get out of here. You can get out of here, or I have to kill you. One or the other. And so the two of them try to escape. Yeah, so what'd you think about this scene, like, up to this point?
Oh, it was pretty good. It was exciting, It had like that familiar like intensity, gotta do it now, we're under a time limit, everybody's gassed kind of a thing, so you don't have to worry about a whole bunch of civilians running around and getting in your way. Yeah, no, it was good. It was good, it kept my interest, especially with like CIA or spy code words and phrases. I love that shit. It's like, oh, what if someone came up to me and said something like that one day and I just knew what to say? I'm like,
yeah, that is kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
That is interesting. It's like one of those like wink wink kind of moments.
Because this is kind of a spy movie, you know what I mean? It's a spy 100%. Movie. It's got some serious James Bond elements going for it. It's got a lot of things going for it. It's like time travel meets James Bond. Yeah,
absolutely. It's super James Bond, and it's just that the main character is, he's basically the James Bond of this organization.
Yep.
As we'll find out later. So John David Washington is saving this guy. He then gets this item from Coat Check, and it's this kind of like small cylindrical metal thing that we're going to find out later is kind of important. And so then the special forces start loading the upper house with explosives. And so John David Washington and his other companion are like they're basically trying to like get rid of the explosives so that people don't die. But that kind of gets him in trouble. And then he sees like John David Washington sees like a bullet go backwards into someone's gun out of like a hole in the wall. And then this person that we don't know at first, like basically saves him from being killed by someone. And then he just runs away. And we kind of see his backpack, which has like a charm on it, and that's going to become important later. But we're just like, wait, what? That was interesting. And so, yeah, basically they complete their mission. They keep people from getting killed. They get back into the truck, but the Ukrainians are kind of mad at them. So they're like, hey, dude, you were supposed to do this, but you didn't. So we're going to torture you. So the two Americans get like tortured, and they're like we were talking about, they're like cutting his teeth out or something really bad.
Yeah, they're cutting his teeth out. It's pretty gross.
And they also like the guy. Have you ever seen the movie Limitless?
No, actually, I haven't.
Okay. Yeah, well, this Ukrainian guy he's in Limitless actually, which is kind of funny. Playing basically kind of the same kind of character.
They typecast him pretty good.
They did, yeah. They're like, yeah, I want that guy. I want the Limitless guy. So yeah, and then the guy takes out. He has a like in his shirt. He has a suicide pill, and he's like, nope, you don't get to. He takes it away. But so they're basically they say they're gonna torture him for like 3 hours or something, or 2 hours. I forget how long.
He keeps setting the clock back like a fucking maniac.
Yeah, total maniac. And so then his friend kind of takes out his suicide pill and like kind of holds it so that he can get to it. And so then he's tied to a chair, and then he like gets out of the chair and takes the pill, and then he dies. Then we see the opening title, and that's the beginning of the movie. So yeah, like, how'd you feel about seeing our main character take a suicide pill at the beginning of this film at the end of this whole siege?
I was very confused. I was like, wait, what? I was like, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. I probably would do the same thing. I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to be tortured for endless hours by Ukrainian mobsters.
Yeah.
No, thank you. But you know, I've seen the trailer, so obviously he's in the rest of the movie. So I was like, hey, I'm sure he'll be fine, but he might be a little fucked up.
Yeah, he got pretty messed up there. But then the next scene, he like wakes up on a boat, and he seems totally fine, basically. So how did you feel seeing him like totally fine after being tortured for hours?
Well, I guess we don't really know what the suicide pill. I was assuming the suicide pill was cyanide, honestly, or some kind of poison.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, cyanide capsules can like really fuck up your face. So I was kind of confused that he was fine, or how they don't really explain how they got him out. They tell him that the rest of his crew or whatever was all died. So I was like, okay, so it was all for naught. Okay. But I was like, he seems pretty okay. And they said that they were rebuilding his mouth or something.
Yeah. This part of the movie always kind of confused me a little bit, because I'm like, okay, so the first thing that I thought was, okay, they must have put him in a time machine, basically.
They could have, they might have. As the movie progresses, I figured maybe Neil went back for him at some point. Mm-hmm. But I don't. Yeah, I'm not really sure. It kind of bugs me too, honestly.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could have happened. Well, we'll get to some theories at the end of this. I think that'll kind of maybe cover what could have happened. But yeah, I mean, basically, he's back. He's like fine.
He's fine. Nothing too bad. I mean, although I will say, like, I knew a woman who broke her jaw and her entire face changed. So, like, getting your teeth ripped out, and even if you get like veneers or some shit. Like your face is gonna look different. Like that's just how it works.
See, that's why I think that they just put him in a time machine to kind of fix it. I think that would work.
Must have, because how else is he just gonna look perfectly fine?
How else is he gonna not look like he had his face ripped off?
Yeah.
Anyway, so then he's talking to this guy. He's like, "Welcome to the afterlife. So you're now officially dead. You chose to die instead of giving up your colleagues. That's a test that you passed. Not everyone does." And so basically, he's now, because he did that, he's a part of Tenet. And the guy gives him this like whole spiel about like Tenet is just a thing. It's like it's a phrase that'll get you into places and get people to tell you things that normally you wouldn't be told. And you also have to do this kind of thing like this. And so, he's now a part of this organization. And he's basically got a mission now. And his mission is to fight this secret Cold War. So then they send him off to meet this woman somewhere. I forget. He's on a boat. He's on a boat doing pull-ups. and then he gets off the boat, and then he gets in a car and he's driving somewhere. And then
India. I think they went to India.
Yeah, they go to India at some point. I don't know if they go to India.
Before that, sorry.
Yeah.
There's so much to this movie.
I know.
The other woman.
Yeah. The woman who like explains everything to him in a very kind of like. Anyway, so he meets this woman, and she's like, she kind of tells him about what Tenet is about, and so it's about this inversion technology, and she gives him an example. So he fires an inverted bullet, but when you fire an inverted bullet, it goes into your gun instead of going out of your gun, and that's kind of a mind fuck. That's pretty crazy. And she's basically explaining how this technology works to him. And one of the things they do is like, there's an inverted bullet, and then she like puts her hand over the bullet, and then it goes into her hand. And so it's like the opposite of if you drop the bullet. If you drop the bullet falls to the ground. With an inverted bullet, the cause and effect is reversed. There's effect that creates cause. So yeah, it's totally and every inverted thing, that's the way that it behaves. But then there's
gun's inverted. Does a gun have to be inverted to shoot an inverted bullet? Because they never mention if the gun is inverted. I don't think. There's a lot going on.
I don't think it has to be.
Okay.
Because she says you're catching the bullet.
Okay.
It's very kind of strange because basically the way it works is that because the entropy is going backwards, what's actually happening. So she says you're catching the bullet. What that means is that usually when you start your car, right? The car creates a chain reaction that allows the engine to start moving to, move the car. An inverted car, it's the opposite. So the act of you getting in the car causes the car to react in a way.
Okay.
So that you imposing your will on a thing causes the thing to change. Instead of for us going forward in time, we have to. It's like I have to drop the pen for the pen to go down.
Mm-hmm.
In an inverted thing, I just have to think about, which is great. I just think about dropping it, and then it will go into my hand. The opposite. Yeah,
that's a lot of multitasking going on. When I'm good at multitasking, I was watching. I was like, that bullet would have gone flying somewhere else.
Yeah, and then I love. So she says this thing. Just don't try to understand it, feel it. Which is
I feel like is them telling the audience, don't try and think too hard about this.
It really is.
Don't, because we have, and now we're here.
just go with it, guys. Just go with it.
Don't think about it. Just watch the movie. Cool shit's gonna happen.
Yeah. Okay, so when you watch this scene, did what was going on, did inversion make sense to you?
None at all. This is one of the scenes I had to rewatch. Because, well, first of all, the dialogue in this movie is far too quiet. I had to keep readjusting my levels to be able to actually hear what they were saying. And I like this actress. I forget her name, but I'm just like, you were talking far too softly.
Oh my god!
And is the boom operator in another room?
I know.
Is this being recorded on a cell phone? Like compared to the score, which is amazing, and the sound mixing, it was great. The actual like dialogue spoken sucked. And I was having a very difficult time like keeping up solely based on the fact that it was so quiet.
The score is like booming. I mean, it is loud.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't see it in theaters because it would have pissed me off because I would have been like, can you adjust the volume, please?
People complained a lot, I think rightfully. And I saw it a couple times. And I feel like there was a time, like a week after they released it, they changed. There was at least one time where I went to a theater where the mix was different, where the dialogue was louder. And I know for sure, like there was a time I went to another. So I went to one theater, it was way better. Then I went to one and it was worse. It was like, you couldn't hear anything. You're in a theater and you can't hear anything they're saying. And it's just like,
it's like I would like to request subtitles, please.
Yeah, subtitles really helps this movie.
Yeah, I turned mine on. There's
a scene on a boat. And like in this movie we'll talk about. But that scene on the boat, like there's I think it was like incomprehensible in a theater.
I wonder if that might have been on purpose, if that was a way to like just mess with the audience head a little bit to get them to pay attention to more of the visual stuff so that you wouldn't have to think too hard about what they were talking about inversion and entropy and stuff like that. I wonder if that was on purpose.
Yeah, I think this is kind of my theory now. Like I think Christopher Nolan kind of like he kind of wants people to just kind of the way I put it, just like submit to the narrative. That's the actual way I would put it, which is that basically he wants you to watch it multiple times. And so you're not going to get purposely, there's a lot of stuff. There's too much stuff probably. And there's stuff you're not going to get. And it's just like, well, you're going to have to watch it again. I really believe that's his mode of operation for why some of these things happen. So
I think it's a good theory because I mean, if someone's gonna have to see something multiple times because they missed 5 minutes of dialogue, that's more money that people are spending going back to the theater. So
yeah, and what a funny thing. So like, I went and I saw this film, and the first time I saw it, right at this point, the the whole theater shut down and it stopped working. Like she's explaining it. She like just had finished explaining something, and then the whole screen went black and it stopped working. And they were like, sorry, we can't fix the projector. You have to go into another theater.
There's a 10 p.m. showing next door in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was so funny. It was like, did this whole thing, and it's like, okay, now I'm kind of like, because with his films, they try not to give a lot away in the trailers, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of stuff where you have no idea. The first time you walk into this movie, you have no idea what you're in for. Mm-hmm. And even when you get stuff, like you're saying, when you get stuff explained, it's still like, wait, what? Yeah. And then it was just so funny. It was like, oh, this is perfect.
This would happen.
Yeah, this would happen. Okay, so then he goes to Mumbai, India, and basically has the mission. So he's going to try and find this guy, talk to this guy, Sanjay Singh. And so then he calls in a favor, and they say, oh yeah, we'll get someone to help you out. And so he meets in a cafe this guy Neil. And the guy Neil's like, well, it's going to be really hard for you to meet this guy because he has like basically an army of security. And, they're like, oh, here's some different things you could do. You know, you could get into his house by bungee jumping. It's bungee jumpable. And he's like, and John David Washington's like, bungee jumpable is not a word. It's like, well, that's what we're about to do. So
I did like that little bit of dialogue because I was thinking something like that. I don't think that's a word. Then he said it. I'm like, heh.
Yeah. There's a lot. Like, I think one of the strongest things in this film is like their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
The John David Washington Neil relationship. It's very cool, and you kind of can see like how their chemistry really works, basically. And like there's this great thing that, you know, it's going to become kind of important later, where he Neil orders a Diet Coke for him, and he's like, oh, it's like, oh, how'd you know that? It's like, oh, well, it pays in my profession. It pays to know things about people. Wink, wink. And then and then he's like, oh, I usually like soda water. He's like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
And we'll find out later why he knows so much about him. But yeah, that's one of the cool kind of interactions they have. So then they do this whole thing where they bungee jump up this building. How'd you like this scene where they do the bungee jumping up there?
I liked it. I feel like they should have been wearing helmets. But you know, Christopher Nolan wants you to be able to see his actors and his characters' faces. But they just got these little like vest things on. I'm just like, yeah, get the fuck out of here. That's not how it works. You know, I've seen people bungee jump, and that's not how they bungee jump. Everything's backwards though. Like they're not jumping off the building to get up. You know what I mean? So it kind of goes with the theme of everything being backwards and all that other stuff. So like I liked it, but at the same time I was like, yeah, they would have smashed right into the side of that building. I'd be like, you're like putting like a toothpick in the center of a rubber band, and then just
yeah.
I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But I don't think that's how it works. Good idea though. Great. Innovation.
Very cool idea. Very cool scene. I mean, basically they're not bungee jumping, they're jumping bungee, right?
Yeah, they're jumping bungee.
So they get up there and they, you know, we get this, you know, the cool spy scenes where they like stealthily take out a bunch of people who are like, you know, the security. And then, you know, John David Washington, like, he basically gets this guy, Sanjay, and he's like, okay, you need to tell me some information because there's a bunch of bullets that are traced to you that were inverted, and how did that happen? And, you know, they kind of talk, and then basically what we find out is that the guy is a front for the wife. The wife is the real power, you know? And then the wife gives John David Washington a bunch of information, basically, about this guy, the villain, Andre Sator, who is a person who basically, so they sold him the bullets, and then he inverted the bullets. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a problem.
Yeah, because they're all criminals.
Yeah. And so Sator is, he's functioning as a broker between the future, like the present and the future. And the future is like sending him information for some reason. Which is interesting. Very interesting concept. And then they kind of get into this thing about like, you know, like how can you communicate with the future? And basically what they're saying is like any traceable thing that you do, like for instance, like this recording could, you know, be speaking to the future because
hi future.
Exactly. Hi future. Yeah. Hello future people. Because they'd say, oh yeah, on May 8th at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, they were there. And so if you know that, you can like send something to that point in time.
Like an email or a text message or a voicemail, anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, anything that's timestamped, then you know, okay, the person's there at that time. Then I can insert something into that time period, and boom, we're talking, you know. And so he's doing this to do something nefarious, and basically what she says is he's trying to get all these, I guess, nuclear weapons or something, or nuclear stuff to do stuff. do bad stuff, do villain stuff. And so, yeah, now he knows, okay, I got to find this guy and stop this guy and meet him somehow. So, boom, that sends him off onto the next part of his trip. And so then he meets Michael Caine, who's playing Sir Michael Crosby. And Michael Crosby
playing Michael Caine.
Yeah,
it's Michael Caine being Michael Caine.
Because, Michael Caine is supposed to be retired. But
for Christopher Nolan, no, he's not.
Exactly. So he's like, okay, hey, look, just do this one scene for me. He was like,
all you have to do is eat a snack and sit in a chair. You don't have to leave your house.
Exactly. Yeah, they shot it in London or something, and it's just him going there. So yeah, he just like, it's a bunch of exposition that's going to be important later. The things that are kind of important is like, so we learn a whole bunch about this. Basically, Sator's wife is this woman, Kat, and they have this whole. It's a little convoluted. There's all this weird stuff with a painting. Basically, there's some fraud that made him mad at her for some reason, and so that makes her trapped in this relationship.
Yeah, he's pissed because she betrayed him because she unknowingly sold him a fake painting. Which, dude, get over it.
Get over it, yeah.
It's like she didn't know. And it's just I found that whole thing just like of all the things he could have had over her head, like she was a drug mule. She was this, she was that. It was a painting she wasn't aware was fake.
Yeah.
That's not her fault.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
Men.
Yeah, no, this guy, he's got all kinds of problems. He's got all kinds of problems. And then so the other thing too was like they talk about there's this explosion that happened at this place, it's Dusk 12, which is going to be important later. But that's basically those are the two things that he tells him. So, and then he also gives him another fake painting to meet her with.
Which, by the way, the world of fake art is very, very saturated within the real art community. Sometimes historians or curators or whatever, people who run these auction houses do knowingly sell fake art, and there's a huge market behind it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. That stuff can be really, especially if it's like a really, really good fake. How's anyone gonna know?
Exactly.
Okay, so then John David Washington goes to meet her, and he like gives her the fake Goya, and then they have dinner. And they're talking over dinner, and basically he like proposes this thing to her to like, hey, I can get you out of the situation if you can get me to meet with him, and I'll be able to get the painting for you, and so then you won't have to deal with his craziness. And she's like, well, no, that's not going to work out because blah, blah, blah. It's not going to happen. And then Sator's, thug guys show up. And
the Goon Squad.
The goons come, yep. And then they get into a fight in they get into a fight in the kitchen.
Oh my God, that scene when he picked up the cheese grater, I'm like, oh, This is going to hurt. Yeah. Oh, I don't know if you've ever hurt your finger on a cheese grater before, but
it's sharp.
Oh my God, and you're smacking somebody with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. The worst thing is like you're grating the cheese and then you get too close and you're like, ah! Yeah.
And he smacked somebody with that.
He smacked him like boom, boom, boom.
That was the most violent thing in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like kitchens are dangerous, okay? There's a lot of sharp objects, and he picked up the cheese grater, and I was like, ugh.
And some guy was coming at him with like a meat pulverizer.
Yeah,
he had the pulverizer, and they're like gonna pulverize his hand, and he's like, he takes his hand away and he starts beating him up. It's a really great scene.
That was really good.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit out of guys, and he's like, I ordered my hot sauce an hour ago. So he beats them up, and then. So they expected that he was gonna get his ass kicked, but then he kicked all their asses, and so they were like, oh, he wants you to see what they do to this man, and then he like steps out of the building and he's like, oh shit, and he like starts the car and drives away.
It's like, oh, this guy's serious.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really funny. Oh yeah, the other thing too, I guess the biggest thing about Kat, like. We'll get into the stuff about the characters later, but basically what we know about her is she really loves her son. she really hates her husband. Like that. That's her character.
Yep, that's her in a nutshell.
That's her in a nutshell. Okay, so then they after she sees, him beat the shit out of these guys, she's like, okay, this guy can maybe help me out. So they meet up again, and she kind of, she gives them the details. So the painting is at a free port in Oslo, and a free port is like some place where it's, I guess the best way to describe it is like, it's like a place where you can like keep stuff so that it's not like, you don't have to pay taxes on it or whatever.
Yeah, like high-end valuables, art, jewelry, what have you.
Yeah, because usually, like, if you buy something in, say, like Europe, and then you try to fly it into, or like the other way around or whatever, like you buy something, you're European, you buy something in America, you try to bring it over to Europe, you usually have to pay like a duty on it. And so with a free port, you get to not have to pay the taxes or whatever. And it just sits at the free port. But, so basically what they're trying to do is they think, okay, there's a safe at this free port where he has all the stuff. They expect that they're going to see the nuclear material in this free port. And, he told her, so John David Washington is trying to get this information from her because, like, she thinks he's going to get the painting to get her out of the situation with the husband, but he's like, I'm going to get the nuclear material. So he's kind of playing her, basically.
Yeah, she's kind of a means to an end.
Yeah, she's a means to an end. So then, Neil and John David Washington, they're like, okay, so we gotta get into the middle of this building. So we have to come up with a plan. So we have to create a diversion. And Neil's like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna hijack a plane, and then we're gonna crash the plane into the hangar, which is going to initiate their emergency fire precautions. And that's gonna allow us to then have like a minute to get into where the safe is, because we're gonna have to like hack through the doors, and then we'll be scot-free. We'll be able to get what we want.
Easy as pie.
Yeah, easy as pie. And yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, that's their plan.
He tells him, like, oh, don't be ridiculous. We're not going to actually fly the plane in there. We're just going to drive it in there. Would you relax? Yeah. You're so American.
It's like, I think we're going to fly the plane. Don't be ridiculous. We're just going to drive it into.
Yeah, I love that. He's just like, don't be dramatic. Yeah. We're just going to drive it into it. Yeah. It's like, it's great.
Yeah, and then they're like, okay, let's do it. And then we get this great scene with the 747. So they're going to do the thing. They have these briefcases that have some fake stuff in it, but the briefcase is just basically hiding the tools they need to hack in to get into the place where the safe is. This other guy, what was this guy's name? The other guy, I forget the third guy, the guy who actually does the hijacking.
I'm not sure, but I liked him. For the little amount of screen time he had, I liked his character.
Yeah, he's there. He helps them out a lot. Anyway, I forget his name. So he gets in. They get into. They act as him and his other guy act as flight crew. They get up there. They knock a couple people out. They get into the cockpit and they tell him, "Hey, you gotta go." They drive the plane towards the hangar. They open the emergency landing chute. They have the two pilots jump off the plane through the little landing slide. They blow up a grenade inside of the 747, dump a bunch of gold bars out of it, and then drive the plane into this building.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was a real plane. They drove into a building. I was like, damn, Christopher Nolan.
It's great. So when I saw this in the theater, and I believe that there's a moment where you first see the plane, and then the score is super loud.
Yeah.
I swear to God, that was the loudest thing I've ever heard in theater.
It was loud just on my computer. I thought my poor little speakers were gonna like
We're gonna
die.
explode.
Christopher Nolan would have owed me a new computer if that had happened.
I do not believe that I've heard anything louder in a theater than that moment when you first see the plane. It was pretty exciting because that was the movie saying, "This is a plane.
Like, this is a real plane, and we're
gonna
really going to crash it." Yeah. It's like, we're not messing around, guys. This is not a model. This is not CGI. Fuck you, Michael Bay. We're doing this.
This is a real plane that's about to fly, a 747 that's about to crash into a building. And they do it, and it's really sweet. It's really sweet.
It's pretty good.
And it's all IMAX, too, so it's really, really, really cool. Great explosions, and the whole thing is like so grand and kind of awesome. And so then the plane crashes. It causes all these things to happen. The other guy who Neil and the protagonist are with, he leaves the room, and the two of them are there, and they're basically doing their plan. They have, as long as they can hold their breath to get through all of these, because the way that this part of the building works is that to put out a fire, they remove all the oxygen with some kind of chemical process, instead of with sprinklers, because they don't want to put sprinklers on the paintings.
That would really fuck it up.
It would fuck them up. But that's really bad for any human being who's in the, like, if you're in there and it removes all the oxygen, you're just going to die. So the two of them, they're like doing their thing. They're trying to get into this part of the building. They get through the first door easily. They get the second door. It's kind of hard, but they get through it. Then they come to some where the safe should be, but instead it's this kind of interesting looking room with two doors, both labeled with different colors. One's like blue, one's red. And then they see this machine, and then two people pop out of the machine. And then John David Washington's getting into a fight with some dude, and they're fighting backwards, like going backwards in time. And we get this crazy fight scene, which is really cool. So this was like crazy. So what'd you think of this fight scene?
I mean, I liked it. I thought it was pretty innovative, but I was kind of, again, it was one of those moments where I was like, I can't really tell what's happening because it is backwards, but I think that's like kind of the point. But no, I liked it. It was crazy. The fact that they were really fighting backwards. I'm like, can you imagine the stunt coordinator being like, you want me to do what?
Yeah.
I need you to choreograph a scene where these guys are fighting backwards. You can do that for me. You can do that, right? Yeah. You're just staring at Chris Monroe like, how much am I getting paid? Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that. I can do that. I think.
Yeah. There's some really interesting, like there's a moment where one of the, like, the guy, so basically there's, John David Washington, and there's a guy in some kind of, like, I don't know, SWAT looking suit, and the guy in the SWAT suit, like, he falls on the ground, but then he's like
he's crawling forward. It was really weird. It was like, that's some Exorcist shit right there.
Yeah, he's like crawling forward. It's like, what?
Yeah, and for the protagonist, he's kind of like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
This is some Freddy Krueger shit. Like, no.
Yeah, the whole time he's like, what the hell is going on?
Mm-hmm.
And also Neil is like running after some other guy. And so then Neil stops the guy, but then kind of lets him go. You just see the guy, he like takes the thing off, and he just lets him go. And so then, basically at the end, the protagonist, he kind of gets the other guy submitted, and then he's like, tell me what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And Neil's like, no, don't kill him. It's like, why are you here? And then the guy gets sucked out of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Gets sucked out of the building, and then he's gone. That's it. And then they're like, okay, that was weird.
Yeah.
And he's like, what happened to the other guy? And then Neil says, oh, I took care of him. So that kind of like threw up red flags for me at first. I was like, wait, what?
The second we like actually meet Neil, I'm like, I don't know if I trust this guy. Because in spy movies, generally your best friend is also your enemy.
Oh yeah,
I feel like
100%.
like
Was
that
it?
tends to be like a trope.
Yeah.
So you can't really trust the new guy. Maybe he's usually like an imposter. He killed the actual guy, or whatever, or he's being bribed by the bad guys. So yeah, that was a moment where I was like, yeah, I don't really. That just makes me not trust you at all.
Mhm.
But this is a movie about time travel, so that also made me think he knows something,
Yeah,
and he
knows
knows
something.
more than I think he's letting on. So it could have gone either way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, okay, that it definitely made me feel like he was a traitor at first.
Also, like they
That was
put
my
him in a
first.
double-breasted suit, and that looks terrible on anybody. I'm sorry. I did like that everybody in this movie who wears a suit is wearing a different kind of suit, just from like a costume point of view, because I love the costumes in Christopher Nolan movies are always like on point. And I was like, the double-breasted suit is just not working for me. It doesn't look good.
Yeah, there's some good suits in here. They're really.
Oh
they're
god,
really
yeah. Everything the protagonist wears is amazing. Like he looks great. Like you can tell when a suit is tailored.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's really on point. So then they have like a kind of a debrief, and they're like, "Whoa, that was crazy, right?"
So that happened.
Yeah. And so then they're like, "Okay, we gotta figure out what the hell's going on," which is great. There's this great line too, like which actually, again, it's another thing that's gonna kind of it has more context when we know the ending of the film. And so the protagonist is telling Neil, so he's like, after we're done, they'll kill you. And then Neil's like, won't you have to do that anyway? And then the protagonist says, I'd rather be my decision. And then Neil's like, yeah, me too, I think. Which becomes very interesting later on. You're right, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those ones where you watch it later and you're like, oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah. So then the protagonist meets Priya again. And basically she kind of gives him more information. She had been not totally truthful. And I forget exactly what they talk about here, but basically it's like, yeah, well, so yeah, he has a time machine, and that's basically like what she was talking about. Like, so yeah, you interacted with someone from a time machine, and yeah, that's actually what we're trying to do here: is stop all this time travel shenanigans. Because if there's too much time travel, it's gonna become a huge problem on the planet. And he's like, okay. So then. Oh yeah, and she also tells him like, oh, he's really after like this plutonium-241. So dangle that in front of him, and then you can get closer to him. And so then he, John David Washington, meets up with Kat again, and he's like, oh yeah, I have the painting. He totally lies to her. So I need you to set up a meeting with me and Sater. And so she does that because she's like, okay, well, I'm out of the situation. I'm out of the abusive relationship, so I can do that for you, and then I can get away from him, and then everyone's happy. I really like this scene too, just like the look of it, because this is the spy kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I think they're in Italy or something like that, but it's beautiful.
Oh yeah, the scenery is gorgeous.
It's so amazing, and there's this whole thing with the boat, with the boats and stuff. Like it's incredible the way they shot that whole sequence, and like just like the protagonist like driving the boat to Sater's big yacht. Just classic spy stuff.
Classic Bond villain. Oh yeah, he's got a yacht. He's in Italy. It's like he's Russian. It's totally spy shit.
Yeah, this is straight out of the Hitchcock, James Bond stuff. Like classic stuff. So cool. Yeah, and so then they have dinner. Sator has some crazy thing like, oh, I'm gonna cut your throat and then shove your balls and yeah.
So I was just like,
I'm going to cut your throat and then put your balls in your throat. There's nothing more.
Yeah, is it just me or does Kenneth Branagh love playing Russians? Like, I feel like this is his second, like, evil Russian character, and he's good at it, don't get me wrong, but it's just like...
Yeah, he leans into it.
Oh, yeah, he leans into playing the bad guy really, really bad. Like, and it's just so gross. It's just like... Ew.
He's a trashy character. And so yeah, he dangles the like, ooh, I know about the plutonium. Do you know about opera?
Balls.
Yeah. do you like opera? It's like, I do like opera. Yeah, well, I was at an opera house and I saw some plutonium, and I know where it is. He's like, okay, and so he's like, meet me on boats tomorrow. So then they get on this boat thing, and this is. So were you able to hear anything that they talked about on this boat?
This scene actually wasn't that bad. It wasn't that difficult, but I did have to keep readjusting just a little bit, especially if like music comes in when they're talking, or God forbid someone shoots a gun. Because in this movie it sounds as loud as it does in real life, and it's very loud. And but it wasn't as bad. Like the dialogue when they're eating dinner in Italy was pretty easy to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I saw this in the theater the first couple times, like this boat scene was incomprehensible.
Do you mean the gliding boats, right?
Yeah, the gliding boats.
Yeah.
When they're on the gliding boats. Exactly.
I don't know what they're called. I'm assuming this is kind of gliding because they kind of get airborne a little bit, but not too much.
There's a proper term for it, but I don't have enough money to know. You know.
Dude, I've got to be friends with Elon Musk. I bet he has a whole bunch of those he's never used.
And they're electric powered or something.
I hate rich people. I did have my subtitles on too, so that definitely helped.
Yeah, it helps. It helps a lot.
Yeah, because I was like, I kind of get what they're saying, but I feel like I'm going to lose plot trying to just listen.
And it's some like again, this is another thing where it's some like really deep kind of exposition.
Yeah, like these are things that we actually need to pay attention to, because this is him infiltrating it, and it just take it down a couple notches, Nolan. That's all we're asking.
Yeah.
Compromise.
Yeah, and we get a bunch of stuff here. So Kat tries to kill him, but
I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
She is a loose cannon, that woman.
She is a really loose cannon.
I can't say that I blame her. I really, really don't, because if I was in that position and I had that opportunity, I'd be like, bye.
Yeah, you gotta die, buddy.
But
that's the only way to get away from this dude, you know?
Literally, that's like the only way to get away from him. And, he's terrible. So I'd say, a life for a bunch of other lives he's ruined is fine with me. Totally.
So then later we learn about like his past. So basically he, he's a Russian. He got to where he was because he took some contract to clean up plutonium from some nuclear fallout sites, like something exploded. And when he went to the site, he got into contact with the people from the future, basically. He found something at one of these sites, and they gave him a bunch of money, and they told him a bunch of stuff. And he was like, okay, I'll do what you guys want, pretty much. And yeah.
I was just going to say, he kind of has a chosen one complex going on.
He does, yeah, he does.
Because the future did choose him for a reason, but he's just like, I am the chosen one. The future chose me, kind of a thing. And it's just like, dude, you're fucking full of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. He also has a like, if I can't have it, he says if I can't have you, no one else can. Up to his wife.
I kind of gagged a little bit when he said that. I'm like, ah, gross.
Yeah, it's gross. He's super gross. But yeah, so the protagonist makes a deal. He's like, oh yeah, I'll get you to plutonium-241. You just have to give me some money, and the go-between will be your wife. He's like, okay, fine. And then we get the scene where he's about to like beat on his wife, and it's like,
yeah, that was fucked up. That was so fucked up.
We get a fair amount of wife beating in this movie. Like,
yeah, he's a monster.
He's terrible.
like the worst type of person. No redeeming qualities whatsoever.
No.
Like, because I feel like for a while in movies like this, they're trying to give like your villain kind of a reason, you know, a motivation of why they're such a pig. Like the Javier Bardem's character in Skyfall. I felt a little bad for him. He wanted revenge, and quite frankly, I think he kind of deserved it a little bit. I felt bad for that character, but Kenneth Branagh's character is just like, no, he's just a pig, and I'm, ugh.
Yeah, he's totally disgusting.
And that was really, for Christopher Nolan, who doesn't show violence, that was really dark. Like that was a really, the implications of that scene were really, really dark, and I was like, damn, that's really, really a deep and dark place to go for him. Yeah,
that was some like old school, you know, 1940s, 30s kind of stuff that people would do to women, you know? It's like, wow.
Ugh.
Yeah, so then there's some more stuff. We kind of learn more about like how he's getting all this. Basically, like it's crazy because basically the future, they're also giving him money. They give him all these gold bars and stuff. And we see him get some gold and then beat some guy to death because he tried to steal his gold. And you know, they make this deal. I'm gonna get you the plutonium. You give me money. Blah blah blah. But it's, you know, the protagonist is just trying to trap him pretty much. Yeah, and then, you know, we learn like how he's able to receive the information, Andre Sater, from the future. Like, so they bury a time capsule at a dead drop, and then that's what they call it. And that's a dead drop, but that's another spy term. It's kind of interesting because it's like taking these spy terms and then like
inverting them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Put a sci-fi spin on it. So yeah, so like he'll I think he just like has some kind of thing where he can email, like on his watch. He has like a little smartwatch where he can just email or whatever. And then they're like, okay, he was there, so we give him money or whatever and information. You tell him about what's gonna happen in the future, basically.
Hey, so, don't you dare start barking.
Don't do it.
She's too sleepy. It's just kind of like half-hearted. Yeah. There we go. She's good. Sorry.
Yeah. So then they have a, you know, so we got another sequence here where the protagonist and Neil are like, okay, how are we going to steal this plutonium? We got to do it without leaving any traces because then they'll know what we're doing. So they get a bunch of some. It's like the Ukrainian special forces or whatever. They're moving the material, and they know where they're going to move it. So they get these 4 massive trucks, and they kind of box them in, and then they kind of close in on them. And then the protagonist, he gets into the thing and takes the plutonium. Takes the plutonium. Meanwhile, we get some more, you know, wife beating in like a really bad scene where he like slaps her and like kicks her, like when she like pulls a gun on him. And he says this, oh, anger scars over into despair. I only see anger. And then he like kicks her. It's like really bad.
No, you're a real tough guy.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a piece of shit. Okay, so this is one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite like crazy like implications of all this stuff. So the two of them are driving a car. They're in like a BMW. And you'll notice it's really cool how they show it. They show that their side view mirror is busted. There's a the mirror is busted. It's like, that's interesting. So basically what we're going to find out later is that it got hit by an inverted car. So when the inverted car hits, it becomes unbusted. But that means that this car came off the lot with a busted mirror. And then it became unbusted when it got hit by this car. So that's a total mindfuck. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
There are a lot of implications to this. There's so many. It's crazy. Like, I noticed that and I'm like, okay, a spy wouldn't get a car with a busted mirror. Like, I don't care how much of in a hurry you are. Like, you're just not going to.
Yeah.
Also, Christopher Nolan loves using big trucks in movies and crashing them. He loves doing it.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. He did in Dark Knight Rises. It's a big truck. And also crashing planes.
Oh my God, this whole scene was just crazy. I was just like,
it's crazy.
What? It was so much at one time, and then it just keeps going. It just keeps going. It doesn't stop. You have no time to really just
it's
breathe.
Crazy. It's totally crazy. So the protagonist steals the stuff. They hear someone on the radio speaking backwards. He's like, what are they saying? It's not Estonian. They're speaking backwards.
It's backwards? Oh, shit.
So then they get attacked by some inverted people and not inverted people. They're chased by a car going backwards, and they see that it's the guy gets next to him, and they see that it's Sator, and he's going to kill Kat. So then he's like, okay, I'm just going to give him what he wants. So he gives him the box, and then there's another car. There's a Saab that is inverted, and then the Saab is like, it's like crashing itself.
Yep. And Neil's just trying to not crash into anything, because at that point you don't know if you have been crashed into. You know what I mean? Like, they have no idea what's coming next.
They have no idea. Yeah, it's crazy. So then he gives him the stuff. He gives Sator the box. Sator gets out of his car into another car, and then they go away. The protagonist has to save Kat from crashing the car. He saves her, but then they get captured by Sator's goons. And then we get some more torture.
Yay, more Russian-Ukrainian torture.
Yeah, we get more torture, and he's like, you will give me information or I kill her. Blah, blah, blah. Tell me, where did you keep it? Is it in the BMW? Blah, blah, blah.
One of them's talking backwards, though. Is it Sator?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He is. So they have this, I believe what it is they have a machine that so he speaks, and it's backwards, and then there's something that basically makes that.
Translates it?
Yeah, translates that into forwards. So then the protagonist tells him, oh yeah, the plutonium's in the BMW. But this is after Kat got shot. And then the cavalry arrives, which is Tenet. This was another thing that kind of I don't know if you felt the same way, but I was like, who the hell are these people?
Yeah, suddenly the organization was just too big all of a sudden. I mean, I guess it makes sense that they would need their own army to fight it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, I mean, and if this has really been going on as long as I'm assuming it has been, then they would have had to have had people before the protagonist came along. He's not, unlike Sator, who has a god complex and a chosen one complex. Jean is just the protagonist is just the next recruit in a long line of recruits, because they're all pretty good at what they do. Especially that one guy who ends up helping them towards the end. I forget his character's name.
Are you talking about Aaron Taylor Johnson?
Was that Aaron Taylor Johnson?
That was Aaron Taylor Johnson, yeah.
I thought it was.
Where it's the three of them, right? It's the three of them that's Aaron Taylor Johnson.
That's a small part for him, because usually he's like...
It's kind of a big-ish part. Like I would say that he's one of it's a supporting role, but because there's basically three leads. It's Neil, the protagonist, and Kat, and then also then there's Sator but yeah, he's got a big part.
The accent totally threw me off. That's what made me think it wasn't actually him, because I was like, I don't think he's that good to do an accent like that. But
yeah, what is Scottish or something? I don't know what he is.
I don't know what he was doing, but I totally bought it, and I had no idea it was him. Wow, that just totally blew my mind.
So that was Ives. So Ives shows up. Yeah, Ives. And you know, so then it's Aaron Taylor Johnson. That was kind of cool. It was not as good as like seeing Matt Damon in it wasn't as good as seeing Matt Damon in Interstellar, but it kind of felt like that.
Yeah, it was very similar.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's kick-ass. Oh shit, cool. So then the protagonist is like, okay, dude, Neil, you know too much, and you've been lying, so I'm gonna have to punch you in the face. And then Aaron Taylor Johnson's like, he's like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. It's a temporal pincer move. It's like, what? A temporal pincer. So what they do is they attack you from both sides of the timeline, and they meet you in the middle. And when they do that, they know everything is going on. You see.
And that's what makes me think that if he knows that strategy, that move or whatever, that this has been going on for a while. This is not the first time that like this is not this kid's first rodeo. So, like I said, like the protagonist is just in a long line of Tenet recruits.
Yeah, Tenet recruit, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And plus, at the end, there's a lot of fucking people around.
Yeah. Yeah. I especially like this movie. In terms of philosophically and how time works, it pulls up a lot of questions, because it's like, well, if they wouldn't you have anticipated that they were going to do temporal pincer move, and wouldn't you go on a like, you know, be prepared for that, or like do one yourself or something? I would think that the Tenet people would be like, this is kind of important, we should be prepared, but you know, they weren't.
The movie makes a very good point of making sure that Sator is always one step ahead of them, because Sator is very good at using the technology. Like he's very apt to it. So I think it was just like, oh, our villain's got to be it's got to not just one step ahead. He's got to be future in the head. You know, he has to be literally ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Or behind. Either way.
Either way, you're fucked.
Yeah. Either way, you're not catching up to them. So then they're basically, Kat got shot. She got shot by an inverted bullet, which is really bad. It's gonna kill you very quickly. So they have to like invert her to like save her. And so pretty much they say, you know, oh, you'd have to, you know, I was like, you'd have to take her back, you know, invert her a week. There's no way to do that. We don't have control of this turnstile. It's like, well, you know, there's another turnstile in Oslo at the airport. He's like, oh no, you could never do that. It's impregnable. It's like, no, not exactly. It wasn't
last week.
Yeah. When we drove a freaking plane into it. Yeah. So they're like, okay, that could work. So they have to bring her back to Oslo. And then the protagonist is like, oh, but you know, Sator threatened to kill her in the past, so I have to go back in the past to make sure she doesn't die. And basically they have like, so someone, this was another kind of thing that people have talked about, which is like, this movie on a certain level is also just about like two people who disagree about how time travel works. Because
yeah.
and it's like, one guy's like, oh, dude, no, it's like Terminator, dude. Like, this is another timeline. We have to like change it. He's like, no, it's not Terminator. It's Back to the Future. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Back to the Future.
Yeah. They even bring up the grandfather paradox and stuff like that.
Yeah. So then the protagonist, he goes into the past. He inverts himself. He goes into the past. We get a whole bunch of more exposition about what it's like when you invert yourself. You can't breathe oxygen, so you need an oxygen mask. You can't touch yourself, because if you do, you'll die or something will happen. Annihilation is what they say. Weaver's the other person. So Ives and Weaver are like the two Tenet people who tell us stuff, and the rest are just kind of, you know, jarheads basically.
Red shirts.
Yeah, red shirts. Exactly.
Yeah.
This great scene, like at the end, where they're gonna do the final battle, and they because there's like two teams, and they're like, oh, why won't they show us what happened to Team A? It's like, oh, they don't want us to know.
We can't know, and do we really want to know?
We can't know. Yeah, we're in for a bad time. Yeah. So you need a mask for air because you can't breathe inverted air. You're going, so you feel like you're going forwards, but to everyone else you're going backwards. Can't touch yourself or else you'll annihilate everything. And then there's some other stuff about like how the turnstiles work. Did any of this turnstile technology stuff make sense? Or
not at all. Still, no. It's just I was at that point, and this point in the movie, I was so deep into it. I'm like, yeah, I just want to know. I just want to see it. I just want to see it happen.
There's so much stuff in this movie that it took me like 7 times to pick up on it.
Mm.
There's this line of dialogue where so the protagonist and Neil are talking about like, oh, give me this tracking thing, and he's like, no, you don't need the tracking thing. They threw out the box that supposedly had the plutonium in it, and he says like, no, I'm going backwards, so I'm following the ball. It's like, what the fuck are they talking about? It took me forever.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna rewatch it. Like I said, I only rewatched like scenes and stuff like that. But I was just like, I'm just along for the ride at this point. Like I'm doing what they told me to do and just not thinking about it.
That line of dialogue took me like 7 times to understand. Because basically what he's saying is like it's so crazy because when things go backwards, it's like totally. It's totally crazy because you're going backwards. He finds the box. He puts a tracking device in the box, and because the box is going backwards, you're now tracking the thing that they took that's going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like my brain is starting to mush.
My brain is starting to mush. So what do you think about like when we first see him inverted going into the world inverted?
It was pretty cool. You know, kind of what I was expecting. You know, birds flying backwards, everything kind of sounding weird because it's all like backwards and stuff. Like, it was pretty good. I liked it.
Yeah, and then he steps in that puddle backwards.
Oh, yeah, the puddle was really good.
Mm-hmm. He gets in the car. One of my favorite things is he's driving, right? And there's this couple that's like, they had just crossed the street, and they're like going backwards from crossing the street or something, and they kind of look at him. Mm-hmm. They kind of look at him. I really like that because, like, you know, they had just unprocessed seeing someone drive backwards past them.
No.
Yeah, it's really exactly. It's really cool. It's really that was the fun stuff. And then he's driving backwards, and this scene is crazy because he's driving backwards, and then it's actually really cool what they do in this scene, like how all this stuff, because like you see him driving, and then it's almost like he ran over like you know if someone threw out a thing at McDonald's out the window, like he runs it over, but you see it fluttering, and then like it like reverse flutters into the wheel.
Yep.
Where he runs it over, and then like he hits a car, but like it's like cars fine, car crash, you know. It's all really cool. It's really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And then we get into, this is one of the biggest. This took me a while. This thing kind of mind fucked me a little bit. So we know from the past that the Saab gets flipped, and now we know he was in the Saab. Then he's back into the scenario where, you know, on one side you see that it's Sator, and on the other side it's the protagonist and Neil in their BMW. And then you see the box get exchanged, but we're seeing it backwards. So we see the box go from Sator to the protagonist, his forward self, not the inverse self. And then like Sator kind of looks at the guy in the Saab, and he sees, oh shit, that's the protagonist. And basically he realizes that's where the plutonium is. And then we see the plutonium like jiggering around in the back of the car. And then it goes like, and then it goes into, and then the protagonist, his forward self, grabs it. So we see that he put the plutonium into the Saab. And then, so then Sator makes the Saab crash, and then he blows it up. And then again, this is another time where the protagonist should have died, but apparently he didn't because the explosion wasn't powerful enough. It just froze him, gave him hypothermia instead of killing him, which is funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to go back to this whole Saab situation, this was another thing that kind of, again, it mind fucked because I was like, okay, so then at the end of basically at the end of this thing, he gets the plutonium, but it's like, how did he get it? Like, where was it? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really weird because basically the plutonium is in the car the whole time. It's in the Saab the whole time. And so it's kind of weird because like basically what happens is at the end of this whole scenario, a couple of people drive up to this Saab and just take the thing out of the Saab and leave. It's so weird. Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy.
There's so much going on.
It's crazy. It is crazy. But the thing is, they never like explain that. There's never like, you just have to figure that out yourself.
Exactly.
That
it's like you said, he wants you to watch it more than once.
So like we were talking about before we went on air, like there are like massive documents that break down what happens in this movie, and there's some just about this whole sequence with the cars. Just about this whole sequence.
Jesus.
To try and explain it. Like massive documents. Because yeah, it's very confusing. Like it took me a while. I was like, okay, wait. So how did they get the thing?
I know they have the thing, but where did the thing come from and why?
and the kind of the problem is like at a certain point you're like, okay, I don't know, and I don't really care to want to figure it out. So I'm just gonna go with it, you know.
Exactly. He made me submit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He made me submit, so I'm just gonna kind of go with the ride. So then we learn the truth about what's going on. So basically, what he was looking for was not any nuclear material. It was part of the algorithm, and the algorithm is this thing that creates these. So basically, it's this thing that. Like the turnstiles are like a small scale version of the technology, but the algorithm can create this like big scale version that could invert all of time. And if it's initiated, so basically that's what the people in the future want to do. They're like, we're going to get this algorithm and then we're going to invert time, and they don't care why. They're just going to do it because they just want to do it. And the people in our time have to stop them because that's gonna. It's like snap your finger, everything ends.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to stop it, basically.
Yeah.
And so then they have these cool conversations about the grandfather paradox, which is like if you go back in time and kill your grandfather, does that stop you from existing? And basically, the people in the future, they don't care.
They're willing to take the risk.
They don't believe in the grandfather paradox. They believe that you can, like the way Neil puts it, is you can cripple and harm them, and things will be fine. So yeah, that's that's the situation. So then they're back to Oslo, back to the Freeport. The protagonist starts just bleeding out, and this is kind of cool because. One of the things that happens in the fight is that the protagonist's forward self stabs him,
mm-hmm.
and we learn that he's fighting himself basically. He stabs him, and so it's interesting, like an inverted wound. Like, what's funny is that when he gets stabbed in the fight, when he's inverted, that actually heals him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's everything leading up to that point is the problem. So it's so weird because so basically what happens is the wound healed, then it unhealed,
mm-hmm.
then he gets stabbed, and then it healed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. That's why he started bleeding, because it was unhealing.
Yep. And that was one of those moments when when they go back to Oslo. I'm like, I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it was him. Aha.
Yeah, and then we see the fight from the other perspective, which is cool. So we see that fight again. And then he's able to get into the time machine, and we see Neil, see the protagonist, and he's like kind of leaves him alone. So then we know what happened. And then Neil gets Kat into the time machine, and that kind of saves her from dying. And then they've succeeded in their part of the mission basically, and basically we get this kind of cool conversation where like Neil's kind of like, yeah, I know a lot of stuff, and we're kind of we're on the same team basically, and like we're all part of Tenet or whatever. And he's like, the policy is to suppress, and we're the people saving the world from what might have been. So basically Tenet is just the major tenet of Tenet is you don't say a lot.
Yeah.
You keep a lot of stuff close to the chest. So then the protagonist meets with Priya again, and Priya kind of tells more about like, okay, what's really going on, which is that it's not about nuclear material. It's about the algorithm. It's about getting the algorithm to the future so that they can initiate it and destroy the universe, basically. And then they talk about like, the person who created the algorithm, which was this woman in the future who invents the technology. And they kind of use this analogy of like Oppenheimer, like during the Manhattan Project. Oppenheimer was, and then probably some other scientists were very worried about,
I
doing
wonder
this.
why.
Yeah, it's like, hey guys, we don't really know what's gonna happen. It's like, no, it's just gonna be a big explosion. It's like, no, like we don't know. Like you could kill a lot of people. Like I don't think we should do this. And like the military people, like we don't care. We're gonna do it anyway. That's probably and thinking about this now, it really kind of makes you like I feel like this is a really good analogy because like basically the people in the future are the military people of the Manhattan Project.
Oh, great.
Yeah, like so that's probably what happened in the future. It's run by a cabal of military. It's like a military dictatorship probably, and that's why the person who made the thing killed themselves and sent it into the past because they're like, there's no hope. There's no hope. They're not gonna listen. They're not gonna listen to me anymore.
No.
Yeah. So, wow. Yeah. So yeah. The Oppenheimer of the future. She killed herself, and she put the pieces of the algorithm. There's like 9 pieces of this thing. Hid it in the past, but hid it at nuclear facilities, which are basically the safest places on the Earth.
Okay.
You can't just go into them.
No.
So they're well hidden there. And so because Sator was at one of these places during the fall of the Soviet Union, he was at the right place at the right time to be able to get communicated from the future. And now he's him and the future are working together to try and put the algorithm together so they can destroy everything. Yeah, and so that's why Priya wasn't telling him because ignorance is our ammunition, as she says. You gotta kind of compartmentalize the knowledge so it doesn't spread out too far.
Yeah.
And then she says like Tenet wasn't founded in the past; it'll be founded in the future, and they have so basically they the good guys, the Tenet guys, they also have a bunch of turnstile technology. So the technology is everywhere.
Yeah.
It is ubiquitous. Everyone has it. Everyone's using it. Everyone's fighting with it. It's crazy. And so she wanted the algorithm to get put together because then they can acquire all of them at once. But they only have one opportunity to get it. And it's going to happen at Stosk 12, and they know exactly when. So basically what they're going to try and do is get the algorithm together, put it in some, like basically a hole in the ground, blow it up so that it's buried and no one can get to it, and then tell the future, hey, it's here.
Yeah.
But they know, because the whole Michael Crosby thing, they know that the explosion happens at XYZ time. And actually the explosion happens at the same time as the Opera Siege, which is interesting. And so they have to go and get this thing and get the algorithm, or else it's over. So they also can't kill Andre because he has a dead man switch, and if they kill him too soon, the stuff is going to get to the future anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So when he dies, the world ends, basically. And he intends to end his life at a precise moment that he wants to choose. And they figure out it's this time when him and his wife are on this, boating trip or something like that. And so they're like, okay, Kat, you need to like delay him from killing himself to give us enough time to get the algorithm so that we can stop this whole world from ending. And so then we get this crazy final battle.
Yeah, I was confused. I didn't really see them who they were shooting at. Like, I'm seeing a lot of explosions. I'm seeing a lot of bullets flying. I'm seeing a lot of people dying. I'm not seeing who they're shooting at. I don't see any bad guys.
Did any of this make sense? Did the plan make sense?
The plan kind of made sense to me, but I just was confused at who they were shooting at. Like, I didn't see any bad guys. I mean, obviously there were somewhere. I'm just seeing a forward motion of these guys the good guys attacking, and it just didn't. The only bad guy I see is the main Ukrainian thug who just pops up out of nowhere, and it's just kind of, that part was a little confusing to me because I'm like, who are you shooting at?
It's crazy because they're all dressed the same, right? Everyone is dressed the same. The good guys and the bad guys are all dressed the same. They're all fighting each other.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Like, I thought Weaver got blown up at one point, but I think that was someone named Wheeler, which was kind of confusing. Or got sucked into a wall. I'm not sure.
The wall unexploded, which killed the guy.
Yeah, okay, so that must have been what it was. But yeah, it was just a little, and then, Neil goes off on his own mission at one point. I'm just like, I don't know where the bad guys are. Where's this army of bad guys?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's just a lot of stuff in this whole long speech that Ives gives, like, oh well, we got to do this and we got to do that, and there's a splinter team and we got to do this. Like, okay. But yeah, basically, like, I guess the whole plan is, they do a pincer move, they attack them. They do a pincer move, but they're also fighting people that are he calls it a bitemporal response. So they're fighting people that are also inverted and non-inverted. So it's a total crazy thing going on.
Shit show.
Yeah, it's just a total shit show. But like, basically, Ives and the protagonist are trying to get into where this explosion is going to happen, but not stop the explosion. And then, because they know that that's where the algorithm is going to be, so then they need to get it and then get out of there. Yeah. So then they're kind of doing that, and then stuff's all going crazy. All of the explosions. There's this cool thing where this building gets blown up, and then it gets unblown up, and then they blow it up again in the future. It's really cool. Yeah, it was really cool. And so then they use that as a distraction for Ives and the protagonist to get into this little place where they know the algorithm's at. But yeah, then there was this kind of interesting thing that happened. Like they're running down there and then someone's honking their horn. And I was like, oh, it's probably something you should listen to, but they don't. And then the whole thing explodes. And then they're like, oh, we're committed now. So they go down into this. They go down in this thing, and basically it's like not a trap, but like, someone was waiting for them. Like, we see later on, so we see Neil. Neil's inverted, and he sees Volko. So he sees Volko going backwards, but he sees Volko laying the trap like a tripwire.
Yeah.
He sees him lay the tripwire after he's getting out of a helicopter.
And Neil's like, oh shit, I gotta warn them. That's where they're going. And
I gotta warn them, but he doesn't warn them in time. So I forget exactly how it's said, but like, so Neil does a lot of stuff in this whole thing.
Yeah.
He does a lot of stuff.
Well, there's multiples. There's like at least two of him running around.
Yeah. So there's Neil. So Neil starts going inverted, and then Neil kind of goes on his own, and then he finds. So they. the bad guys have a turnstile at the location where they're inverting people to go fight in the war.
Yeah, these invisible villains that I don't see.
yeah. They're creating inverted antagonists. So he goes there, and then he sees the turnstile. So then he goes forward. So then he goes forward. He takes a Jeep or like one of these Humvees.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then he tries to save them. He's honking at them like, "Hey, stop!" But they don't listen. So then that thing blows up. So then he drives to where the explosion's going to happen, so that he can save them. But then there's also the other version of him who's going backwards, actually. And so then we see going back. Now we see the protagonist fall into this trap with Volko. So Volko shoots Ives, and then basically the protagonist is in a situation where he's stuck, and he's basically taken out by Volko. And then they get into this weird thing where it's basically like a massive monologue from the bad guy, and over the radio, he's like, "Oh, I defeated you, blah blah blah. Yeah, you fight for a cause you barely understand. When I die, the world will die with me." And then so to me, this is actually like one of the most interesting parts of the film, because this thing, this is where Sator kind of gives away the theme of the film, I think. And so the protagonist is like, okay, why are they doing this? And he's like, oh, because their oceans rose and the rivers ran dry. They had no choice but to turn the world back. So basically, climate change was so bad that like we were saying, like basically climate change was so bad that the world devolves into some kind of military dictatorship, and whoever was in charge created this technology, and they were like, we don't care what it's going to do to the past, we're going to turn time backwards, or else we don't have a chance to live. So I thought that was interesting, because like I feel like that's basically what this movie's about. It's about some messed up climate change future trying to attack the present.
Yeah.
It's like
assholes.
The sins. Yeah.
Still assholes.
Yeah. Totally. So then what happened? So this is really kind of wild. What happens? So then, like, there was a dead body there, and we kind of figure out that it's Neil, because like, the person had like a backpack that has this little trinket on it.
And they were on blue team, and Neil was on blue team, and protagonist was on red team.
Yeah. And so then we see Neil, like, the body just like gets up, and then from our perspective, he unlocks the thing, and then the gate opens, and then Volko's like, what? And then so Sator told him, oh, shoot him, but then he shoots Neil, and then the gate opens. And then the protagonist shoots Volko and fights Volko to stop him from dumping the algorithm. And then they get into a fight, and then basically the protagonist stops him. Neil goes backwards back to wherever he came from, because he was inverted. But yeah, then Ives and Neil stop Volko. They get the algorithm, and then the forward Neil drops a rope down for them to grab onto, and so then they get out of the hypocenter before it explodes, and everything's good.
They saved the day.
Yeah, they saved the day. And meanwhile, Kat is doing some whole thing, and she finally gets the courage to shoot Sator. She shoots
finally.
him. Yeah.
Finally.
She shot him too early, but thankfully it didn't matter, because they were able to get the thing. So the cat shoots Sator, and then she throws his body off the
and his head like bounces off the side.
That was great.
Now he's really fucking dead.
That was
good.
That was like wow.
Yeah, that was intense.
Yeah, that was intense. Yeah. So okay, here's another like. So to me, what's kind of crazy about Tenet. So basically Tenet. So like, if you think about Tenet from like the perspective of the future, So what's happening is the future people, they're telling Seder to do all this stuff, and it's working. It's having an effect on the future, and they know that he's doing what they're telling him to do. And so he's doing all this stuff. He's got all the pieces of the algorithm. And then he tells the people in the future, oh, the algorithm is here. It's all here. The future people go and they dig it up. They dig it up, and they find nothing. That's literally what happens in the future in this movie. They do all this stuff, and he's doing all these things for him. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, yes, we finally did it. We're going to be able to, like, you know, change our world. And they dig a hole, and there's nothing there.
That's nothing.
And then they're like, fuck.
Well, gotta go back to the drawing board. Are there any other poor, you know, plutonium digging Ukrainians or Russians we can manipulate to do our bidding?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, so we got to find another chosen one.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny. Okay, so then it's like, so then we get this kind of Mexican standoff between Ives, the protagonist, and Neil. And basically, okay, so what Ives says is, you know, no one who's seen this leaves the field. And so they have to hide the each piece of the algorithm, and then they have to die, because no one can know where they hide it.
Yeah, but they're kind of like, hey, we don't have to die today, though.
Yeah, we don't have to die today. You know. And so then, you know, basically, we see Neil. He turns around. We see his backpack. We see the little trinket on his backpack, and so we know Neil saved him. Yeah, Neil saves him at the opera. Neil also is gonna have to die to save the world. He has to sacrifice himself.
What's happened happens.
Yeah, what's happened. We're weaving another pass in the fabric of this mission. And then Neil and the protagonist, they have this kind of they kind of talk at the end. He's like, you know, the protagonist's like, oh, who recruited you? It's like, didn't you figure it out? You did, of course.
Bro, you did.
Yeah, bro, you're my bro, you know?
Yeah, he says like it was years ago for me, but it's years ahead for you.
Exactly. We're the people saving the world from what might have been. Yeah, this is a really cool moment. And Neil goes off to, you know, take a bullet, basically. That's what he does. And yeah, and then we kind of, do you have something?
I was gonna say it's further, like it's like literally the end of the movie, but continue.
Yeah. So then the protagonist, he basically like becomes the head of Tenet. He kills Priya when Priya was going to kill Kat. And yeah, we get this voiceover from Neil. No one cares about the bomb that wouldn't go off, only the one that did. Blah blah blah. Tenet. And then that's the end of the movie.
Okay, the little boy is Neil. Like, I'm convinced of it. The little boy.
Yeah.
I think Max, like her son, I think that was her son's name, is Neil. I'm like totally convinced of it, because it's like, it was years ago for me. It's years in the future for you. He looks like a little Robert Pattinson for the 2 minutes of screen time that kid has. Like, plus he owes Kat. Like, he feels like he's indebted to Kat. Like, she helped save the world. I just think he maybe kept an eye on this kid and then like gave him a new identity and some shit. That's my big theory. I was like, that's totally
Yeah. I a lot of people like that theory. I don't totally buy it, just because I think it makes the timeline kind of wonky. Now maybe because you're doing all this weirdo time travel shenanigans, maybe that doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean it's very possible, and it's a lot of people speculate that.
It's the most obvious one, in my opinion. Like, it really is. But or Neil is just like someone from the future who they sent back, or because he's clearly not from the protagonist as we see the protagonist is present. And he is a student of time. So I think he's not of that. I think he's a man out of his time, in my opinion. Whether he's the kid or not, you know, he knows way more than anybody else in the movie.
Yeah. The inversion stuff kind of it really kind of makes me think, because like, okay, if I go in the time machine and I go backwards, am I aging backwards?
Yeah, that's another thing. It's kind of,
or am I aging forwards?
It's amazing for the amount of stuff and information that we get, how much we still have questions. You know what I mean? Yeah,
because that again, that's another thing that like kind of makes me feel like the Neil is the kid wouldn't work. Because if you go in the time machine, you would always go back to the same point.
Yeah, that makes
basically.
sense.
But I don't know what the rules are.
Exactly. Like the rules are so.
I don't know what the rules are.
They have some, they don't have others. It's just, it's all. I think it's just one of those things where they created so many new rules that you have to like create your own to rationalize all the stuff that you're seeing.
So a lot of people have compared the protagonist Neil relationship to like a Doctor Who story arc. I'm not familiar. I've heard this like multiple times, but apparently there was one storyline in Doctor Who which played out basically like this, where like Doctor Who had a companion and the companion kind of went away, and it's like, oh, we've been friends for a long time. I just time traveled. Like we're gonna be friends in your past. And
she was his wife or something like that. I watched the episode that is based on, but I never watched the following season with her because Netflix took Doctor Who away before I could finish it.
Yeah, but I've heard that a lot. And yeah, there's all these fun things, then it's like, oh, that's why he knew he liked Diet Coke, right? Yeah. Oh, that's why all this stuff, Yeah, so I guess what are your overall thoughts and feelings on the film after you watched it?
I liked it. I haven't liked a Christopher Nolan movie in a while, and I really want to. I really want to like his movies. With the exception of Interstellar, like I obviously liked that. And this was good. I liked it. I thought he did some new interesting things with time travel that we haven't seen before, which is nice. Because like I said, it's so saturated.
Yeah, it is. It's really saturated. There's a lot of exposition and stuff in this. Yeah, I like this film. I thought at first I was kind of like okay-ish on it, just because I felt like the characters were pretty flat.
Yeah, there's not a lot to them.
But yeah, after a while, and the other thing too, I was very confused.
Yeah,
I was very confused. Like, there's so many things that really confused me, and there's a lot of things where there's no like explicit answer.
Yeah, but they tell you that too in the movie. Like, don't think about this too hard.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the things, again, what I really liked was, thinking about the way that I guess the theme of the film is, because I really feel like he purposely made Tenet as an organization.
Ellie.
What's going on? Yeah. So
keep going.
Tenet as an organization is basically it's founded on. Everyone has to prove that they're willing to sacrifice themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's kind of interesting that like basically the protagonists are all these people who are selfless, and all the villains are these people that are selfish. And I feel like that was done for a reason, especially when in the context of the fact that this is about climate change. Like, climate change is the villain of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found that really interesting thematically, because it's almost like saying, hey, this is what we have to do to like ensure that our future is different.
Yeah, because I feel like people who I don't want to say beat the drum of climate change, because it's actually really important, so I don't want to minimize that or anything, are always kind of mocked by people for whatever reason. Like, oh, you're going to recycle, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Like whenever I get like a 6-pack of like those mini Coca-Colas or whatever, I always take the plastic thing off and I cut it up so that it doesn't like kill a poor little sea turtle or like get caught over the snout of a bottlenose dolphin. You know what I mean? Like, that's just me trying to do my part. And I got mocked for it once. And I'm like, look, the chances of this maybe getting onto a bottlenose dolphin is like slim to none, but I'm trying to just do my part and like making sure like the earth is just a little bit better. Like, is that like, I don't know why people are always like mocked for just trying to make the world a little bit better. It's like, it's because the future in this movie is very cynical. It doesn't even want to give the past a chance. No,
they're trying to snuff them out, basically.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, it's really bad. So there's a couple of things. So that just I wanted to bring up because now that we can like talk about everything. So one of the things that I was thinking about, so that woman who was like talking to the protagonist at the beginning, do you think that she was like the stuff she was studying was from that battle in the film? Like at the end of the film?
Like the big rock
Yeah.
that they were shooting at? Possibly. I mean, I think that's a very good chance. I feel like she's from the future. Well, no, because she kind of implies that she isn't. I don't know. It's very weird because the rock does look like it could have come from that battle.
Yeah.
But then they knew the outcome because they got the rock. Or did they? I don't know.
It's really strange. It's really strange. Yeah, because a lot of it is like this. There's basically, and this is another thing in Interstellar. There's one timeline. So they do. So all this stuff happens, but they're always going to win. But we don't know that at first.
Exactly.
But yeah, I feel like there is kind of one timeline, and I do think that stuff, which is kind of crazy because if you think about it, like we're watching this guy go through this thing, and then it's like the beginning of the movie, and he's already won the battle.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know it. He hasn't gone on that journey yet, which is kind of funny.
I don't want to be a dick, but I actually have to get going because I have my shot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I feel so bad.
No, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I think we've basically covered everything anyway.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, yeah, I guess any last thoughts?
Watch it because I told people that I didn't think people should watch Inception, but this is a movie I think you should definitely watch. And watch it more than once because the nice thing about this, exactly, you'll learn more, and it's like watching a different movie because you've already learned one layer of the story, and then when you watch it again, I feel like when I watch it again, I totally expect that I'm going to see a totally other layer of the story that I hadn't noticed before.
Yeah, I agree. The more you watch it, the more you're going to kind of learn stuff about it.
There's layers to it.
There's a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, that's our review of Tenet. So, thanks a lot, everybody, and take care. May the force be with you.
Live long and prosper.
All right.